Hello, and I'm gonna read the story called Wrinkle in Time. Mostly everyone should know this, but I'm gonna read it today. I'll just start off with the first chapter. It was a dark and stormy night. In her attic room, Margaret Murray, wrapped in an old patchwork quilt, sat on her foot on her bed and watched the trees tossing and fiercely lashing through the winds. Behind the tree, clouds stuttered frequently across the sky. Every moment the moon ripped through them. It carried a wrath-like shadow that raced along the grounds. The house shook. Wrapped in her cloak, Meg shook. She wasn't usually afraid of the weather. It was not like the wind, she thought. The wind on top of something else. On top of me. On top of Meg Murray doing something wrong. School. School is all wrong. She has been dropped down to the lowest section in her grade. That morning, one of her teachers had said crossly, Meg, really, Meg, I don't understand how children with parents as brilliant as yours are supposed to catch to be a poor student. If you manage to do a little better, I'll have to stay back next year. During lunch, she thought of the roofed house a little bit to try to make herself better. And one of the girls had scornfully, After all, Meg, we aren't in grammar school kids anymore. Why are you just acting such like a baby? I ran away from school, walking up to the road, her arms full of books. One of the boys had a little something in her. Dumb baby mother. At this, she thrown her books on the side of the road and tackled him with what ounce of strength she had, and she ran home, her blouse torn and a big bruise under one eye. Sandy's and Denny's, her 10-year-old twin brothers, who got home from school an hour earlier than she did. They were discussed. Let's do the fighting if it's necessary, they told her. It's delicate, that's what I am, she thought grimly. That's what I'll be saying, that's not mother. But then everyone else, I wish father. But there's no possibility to think about her father without the changes of the tears. Only her mother could talk about him in a natural way, saying, Your father gets back. It's back for where? From where? And suddenly, surely her mother must have known what people were saying. They must be aware of the smugly vicious gossip. Surely it hurt her as much did Meg, but she did not give an outward sign. Nothing ruffled the symmetry of her expression. Why can't I hide it too? Meg thought. Why do I always have to show everything? The wind rattled mainly in the wind. She pulled the quilt close to her, curling up in one of her pillows. A gray fluff of a kitten yawned, showing its pink tongue, yanked its head under again, and went back to sleep. Everyone was asleep. Everyone except Meg. Even Charles Wallace, the dumb baby mother, who had an unquainting way of knowing where she was awake. Unhappy who would come many nights tiptoeing in the attic stairs. To her, even Charles Wallace was asleep. How could they sleep? All day on the radio there had been hurricane warnings. Maybe that would leave her up in the attic of the rusty brass bed, knowing the roof might not be blowing right off the house. She tossed out the night wind skyland. Who knows who's there? Her shivering grew uncontrollable. You asked the attic bedroom, she told herself cheerily. Mother lets you know to have it because you're the oldest. It's a privilege, not a punishment. I'm not during a hurricane. That isn't a privilege, she said, aloud. tossing the quilt around her foot of the bed, and stood up the kitchen, scratched obnoxiously, and came up with her huge innocent eyes. "All about to sleep," Meg said. "I'm just glad you're not a kid and a monster like me." Looking at herself in the wardrobe, made a horrible face, bargaining her mouth full of teeth covered with braces. Automatically, she pushed her black glasses into a position, ran her figure, ran her fingers through her mouse brown hair, and stood wildly at the end, letting out a sigh almost noisily as the wind. The wooden floors were cold against her feet. The wind blew curves around the window's frame. The spike of protection storm slashed, supposed to suffer. She could hear the wind howling through the chimneys all the way downstairs, where she could hear their form bars. The black dog starting to bark. He must be frightened too. What is he barking at? Her bassness never barked without a reason. Suddenly she remembered why she had gone to the post office to pick up the mail that she heard about was tramped, and who someone who have stolen 12 sheets from Miss Buncombe, the constable's life. They hadn't caught him. Maybe he was heading to Murray's house right now. Especially back road was. This time maybe he'll come more than sheets. Meg hadn't paid much attention to talk about the tramp at this time. Many proponents with an angry with a cheery smile had asked that she heard from her father lately. She came out the little room, made her way through the shadows of the main attic, bumping against the ping-pong table. Now that I have a bruise on my hip, on top of everything else, she thought. Now she walked to the old doll's house. Charles Wallace walking horses, the twins' electric trains. "Why must everything happen to me?" she demanded in front of the large teddy bear. In the floor of the attic stairs she stood and listened. Not a sound from Charles Wallace's room, but on the right, on the left, in her parents' room, not a rustle from her mother, sleeping away alone in the next double bed. She tiptoed down the hall into the twins' room, pushing across the stool so they can help her see better in the dark. Denise was snoring. Cindy muttered something about baseball and science. The twins didn't have any problems. They weren't great students. They weren't bad ones either. They had perfect concentration in sections of B's and occasionally A's or C's. They were strong and fast runners and good at sports. They cracked about and make about anyone in the Murray's family. They weren't about Fanny's or Denny's. She left the twins' room and went on downstairs, avoiding the creaking hoofstead. Her Denny's had stopped barking, and the tramp this time. Then the fort was go-top, barking about anyone who's around. But supposedly the tramp does come. What if he has a knife? No one lives near enough to close to hear we screamed and screamed and screamed. Nobody cares anyhow. "I'll make myself some cocoa," she decided. "It'll cheer me up. If the roof blows, at least I won't go off with it." The kitchen light was already on, and Charles Wallace was sitting at the table drinking milk, eating bread and jam. He looked very small and invisible, sitting alone with the big, old-fashioned kitchen. The blond little boy had a faded blue Dr. Dims, his feet swinging in a good 6 inches above the floor. "Hi," he said cheerfully. "I've been waiting for you." From under the table were lying Charles Wallace's feet, hearing a crumb or two. From raised his slender dark head, greeting Meg, and his heel dumped against the floor. Herman had arrived on the doorstep. a full row of puppies, grabby and abandoned. One winter night, he was Space Mountain told him to decide that Louis Central Park gray ground, that he was a slender, dark beauty and was all on his own. Why don't you come up? Why didn't you come up to the attic? Meg asked. Her brother speaking as to, or at least her own age. I'm scared stuff. Too windy up in the attic of yours, the little boy said. I knew you would be down. Come knock on the stove for you. It gotta be hot by now. What did Charles Wallace always know about her? How can he always tell? He never knew or seemed to care what Danny or Shani were thinking. It was his mother's thinking mind and Meg's. He prompted the faint NOC. Was it people and a little afraid of him that they whispered about the Mary's youngest child, who grew not to be quite bright? I heard that clever people often have sentimental children. Megan had once overheard. The two boys seemed nice, regular children. An unattractive girl and a baby boy certainly aren't all there. But the truth in Charles Wallace unspoken when everyone was around. So many people thought he can't learn to talk, but it's true he hadn't talked until he was almost 4. Meg would turn white and furry when people looked at him and chuckled, shaking their heads sadly. I don't know about Charles Wallace, Meg, her father had once told her. Meg remembered how clearly because of the short way. There's nothing mattered in her mind. It's just his own way to think of his own time.